In part 2 of our demo, we're going to be focusing on the Safyr tool portion of the demo. First off, for our demo, we're going to look at the unique tool called Safyr. Safyr is a tool to be able to extract all the metadata from our Salesforce environment into a user interface to be able to manipulate it, to be able to make it ready to export to an ERwin data model. Within the Safyr tool, we need to be able to first configure our environment, our repository, where we're going to store this information from our ERP solution. Notice it only pulls in the metadata. It does not pull in any of the Salesforce data itself. But by configuring our repository where we're going to be storing it, we then define our connection to our database for both the repository and for the Salesforce environment. And using the wizard, you'll be able to define your configuration to be able to extract that data and where you're going to store the metadata in your Safyr repository. Now, once you've actually defined your repository, we need to actually open up the particular repository. And once we've got it open, it prompts us with 3 different layers of information or manipulation that we can perform. The first is the discovery phase. This is where we load the data from your Salesforce environment into your repository. For this particular demo, I'm not going to go through the steps to be able to do the loading of the data into our repository. This has already been done prior to our demo, and we've already got it preloaded with all the metadata from our repository. Next is our scoping phase. This is where we define what we want to do, what areas of interest we have, and how we're going to be able to group these bits of information, tables, into something meaningful to be able to export it to our ERwin data model tool. But before we go too far into the exporting manipulation, I just want to give us a quick roundup of the Safyr tool. And first, we're going to see a list of all the tables in our Safyr environment. Notice the ability to be able to search and limit our search based on specific objects. We're going to use a wildcard of all particular tables that exist in our Salesforce demo data. What is important to note, it has returned 256 records. So it tells us how many tables we've got in our environment. You'll also notice that it'll give us the physical table name and also a short description, which is equivalent to our logical data names. It'll also tell us the type of table we are looking at. You'll notice these are all standard tables that we've done the extract on, because this has come from a standard Salesforce environment. But any custom tables that you maybe have created in your Salesforce environment will also be imported into this Safyr tool, and you will notice that they are custom tables. We will also notice that we have some other information to understand in our environment, like number of children tables, number of parent tables, the row count. So we can straight away start seeing how many tables have been populated. Bearing in mind this is demo data, so we've got very limited amount of information, but as you can see, we have pulled in that relevant information. Through that, we can also explore any views, any data elements, and any domains. So through this, we can be able to understand our particular environment. I want to go through one step further and allow us to be able to look at a multi-object search. So if we go into the multi-object search, very similar concept in place where we can do a search But the difference between a multi-object search, you'll notice it will list any domains with the name selected, and it will also do any of our tables and any type of objects that we store in our repository. Notice that we've got 0 views, but we've got 458 data elements, 458 domains, and our 256 tables. But 256 tables might be too much to put in a subject area. We want to limit our subject area to something like account. So by using our search capability, we can limit the amount of returned objects to just those specific objects that we're looking for. By clicking on any of the particular objects, we can right-click on it, go to the detail section, and we can actually see the detailed information for our account table. We can see any of the fields that are associated with that account table, and by being able to scroll through them, we can actually notice using the icon on the left-hand side, which are relationships, and which ones are our primary keys. We can then go to any particular field and go and discover any of the field objects. And by being able to see here, we can see this field is called Billing City. But we have also pulled in the logical name for Billing City. We've also pulled in all the information about the data element, the domain information, the data type, and other technical information that is relevant to that particular object. So by doing this, we can explore all of the information related to our account table. We can also explore any relationships. And we can then go to any of our particular relationships, and we will notice that we've got a parent and child information about the columns. We've got the parent table information, the type of relationship we've got, and should we want to drill into the parent table, we can even drill in to find out about the parent table. So using this functionality, we can actually explore our environment, our Salesforce environment, understand all of our information in our Salesforce environment, and be able to explore it to be able to understand what we want to add to our subject area. Notice that it also be able to pull in information about our indexes. So it is a very rich set of metadata about our Salesforce implementation. For this particular exercise, I want to actually take us through the steps that we would go through and to be able to achieve an extract, to be able to put it into our ERwin data model. Now, to be able to do that, we must be able to understand and search for the particular objects that we're looking for. And I'm just going to use our 6 objects that we've actually created from our search results. And I'm now going to go and add these to a new subject area. Subject areas are subsets of information in our environment that we want to define for a particular purpose. So we're going to add these 6 tables to a new subject area. Notice it will pop up with a wizard to ask us what we want to name our new subject area. And for this exercise, we're going to call this our account information. And we're going to say we're going to create our subject area for our account information. Notice there's our account information subject area, and those 6 tables that we pull through from our search results are now reflective in our subject area. We can then go back and do further searching, and I'm just going to use a wildcard search this time. And we are going to once again go back to our tables, and let's say we want to find anything to do with our case as well. And we find case, we can actually drill into our case, and be able to go navigate our information. I want to now look at how many relationships I've got, and our case is related to our account ID in our account table. That's exactly what I want to see. But I noticed we've also got some other information coming in from some other tables. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create another subject area called our case information. But we're going to first search on anything with the word case in it. So we're going to return a set of tables containing 13 tables. And this time I want to create a new subject area for our case information. So this time we're going to use the subject area editor, and we're going to create our subject area for our case information. Notice there's no members in it, but we're going to take case comment, contact role, our case history, and case solution, case status. And those are the tables we want to include in our particular subject area. So I've selected a subset of my results from our object search, right-clicking on it, and we're going to add those 6 objects, which happen to be our tables, to our subject area called case information. So you'll notice that we've just added those 6 tables that we had highlighted in our particular environment. So through that, we can actually explore and can expand further on the subject areas that we would like to work with. In our particular demo, I'm going to stop at that point, and we are comfortable with our 2 subject areas that we've created. And I'm going to just close that down quickly. So that is our scoping capability. Notice we can drill into our subject areas from within our dashboard. Very nice, neat dashboard to be able to navigate through the various steps we want to work through. And from here, we're going to move on to our delivery phase. Our delivery phase is exportation of those subject areas. So we're going to export our subject areas. And note once again the use of the wizards to be able to step us through the processes that we are working with. And we are going to add our account information, and we're also going to add our case information subject areas. So we want to export both subject areas, so we can pull in multiple subject areas into our ERwin model. And further to that, we will go through the next step, which will define what type of output we want to generate from our extraction and our export. So we've defined that we want to move it out to an ERwin data model. Notice there are various other options available. We want to export it as a version 9.x ERwin data model file. We can also define what type of notation we want to use. I like to use information engineering, so I will stick with that. And we're going to give us our name for our particular extract and export, and we're going to call this our Salesforce information. And the last section here is what we want to actually happen after we've done the extract and export. Now the export will export it to an ERwin file, and we've rightfully set up that we're going to open up our copy of ERwin and navigate in ERwin that particular model that we've just created. So by going through the wizard, we will go through to the next phase. The next phase defines what we're going to extract over and above the tables that we have selected in our subject areas. Now, bearing in mind all tables have relationships, and those relationships between our tables might be significant for our extract, and we want to be able to understand those relationships and where they go to. And through this, we can define that we want any parent relationships to also include the tables that they are in the parent relationships. Notice the ability to limit it to identifying and non-identifying relationships, and the level that we want to go to. For this particular demo, I'm just going to go to one level to our parents, And likewise, our child relationships, we can also define what level we want to go to and the type of relationships. We can select either identifying relationships or all relationships. I'm going to stick with all relationships. And the last section we have in our wizard is to define whether we want to limit the number of entities we're going to export. So we can set it to a particular number of entities. In this particular example, I'm going to set it as 0 for no limit. So it will export anything that fits the criteria of being in our subject area and being in one level of a parent to any object in our subject area, or one level of a child of any object in our subject area. The last section that we will notice here is the ability to include tables that are containing data. Now this is a very valuable switch to be able to switch on. If you're trying to extract anything in your production environment and you've pulled in the number of tables or number of rows in our tables, we can then identify those particular tables that are containing data. And we can exclude anything that doesn't contain data. So that way we can actually limit our focus of what we put into our ERwin data model is only tables that we are working with. Those tables that we are not using in our ERP or our Salesforce environment will not be included in this export into ERwin. Whether it's in the subject area or in a parent or child table, it will limit us to only those valid tables that contain data. For our particular exercise, I'm going to include anything that doesn't even have data in it or anything that does have data in it. This typical example might be when we're going to do some development work. We want to see what tables are out there to be able to hold the information that we want to work with. So by using that type of scenario, we can then say we don't want to limit it only to tables that include data. And the next step is to start the export. This will actually go ahead and go through all those tables, all the information in our Safyr environment, then start creating an ERwin data model, and then allow us to be able to open up our ERwin data model in our ERwin tool. And to do that, we're going to say OK to export, to open it in our ERwin data model tool, and we will have everything in our ERwin data model. This now brings us to the end of our part 2.